Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. I'll teach you how to find what's causing your health struggles using the blood work you already have, right here on this podcast, but also in my new book, Why Are My Labs Normal? Go grab it on Amazon and let me know you love it and appreciate the knowledge by leaving a review for both the book and this podcast. In fact, this October, I have recorded so many interviews, I need to get them to you guys to learn and grow from faster. Each Tuesday episode is a double whammy. Each Tuesday episode will contain 2 interviews I had with 2 amazing guests. So, let's jump in. But first, let me tell you a quick funny little story about myself. There will be a new one each Tuesday this month. So it's not very often that I get to go to the grocery store by myself. Usually I had my 5-year-old and my 2-year-old with me, and at times it can get quite crazy because they're 5 and 2. So this time I had convinced my husband, after I had already gone to Sam's Club for a $500-ish purchase of food, which I don't do very often. I only go to Sam's Club like twice a year, but he was in charge of a young men's church activity. He was in charge of all the food for it. So I had to go buy the food. Well, we needed to restock. So I ended up going to Sam's Club twice in one day. Again, very unusual for me to even go there to begin with. So I convinced him that I could be there and back on a Friday night, and I could do it by myself, and he could have both of the kids. Because usually when I want to leave the house and do the grocery store shopping on my own, he always says I have to take one kid with me. This time I convinced him I don't need a child with me. I could do it lots faster without one. But of course, as a mom with 2 young kids running my own business, I need a break here and there. So I was going to go to Sam's Club and do the shopping that we needed and not hurry so much. But that's not in me. I realized 32 minutes later, after I had my entire cart full of another $500 grocery store run, it had only been 32 minutes. And I was like, how do people meander down the halls and just kind of look at things? I physically can't do it. I don't know how. It's always go, 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 go. Impact more lives. Go, 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 go. So next time you go to the grocery store, you can think of me and how I don't know how to walk through a grocery store slowly. All right, here we go. Welcome to the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast with me, Dr. Kylie. Today we're going to talk about B vitamins and how B vitamins impact our neurotransmitters, which we often associate with anxiety and depression, how trauma impacts those B vitamins and therefore our neurotransmitters, and what other things can negatively impact our B vitamins. Now, B vitamins are important because I always tell you, B vitamins are needed to take food and convert them into energy. So if you want more energy, you need to be able to use your B vitamins very well. And I have with me a special guest, a special friend and colleague who is in my 90-day program, who is taking her counseling program and turning it into a functional medicine program, Jessica Watterud. Jessica, welcome on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I want to jump in really quick and just ask you how the blend of counseling and functional medicine is going. Just because if there's any counselors listening, maybe they might not have thought about that, but it's a beautiful blend.
Oh, it really is. And honestly, the reason that I even got into this for myself personally was because of a client. So I had a client who had chronic depression and couldn't even remember not feeling depressed, who started taking care of their body. And the transformation was very quick, 2 months, and he was done. So it was just incredible.
Like when you say started taking care of his body, what do you mean?
He started exercising. He started getting outside. He started taking the supplements that his body needed to heal. So it was unbelievable. I could not believe that a person could heal that fast. Because from my experience, it was people were in counseling for a year or more. And then as I get into this,
then you also do different with, you do What,
EMDR.
What is it that?
Yeah, eye movement desensitization.
EMDR. I thought that's what it
and
is, but I didn't want to say
reprocessing.
it. Yeah, walk us through what that is.
Okay, so it's kind of what your mind does naturally. So when we're sleeping, we are processing our day, processing the things that have gone on, what we've seen, what we've heard, our experiences. I like to explain it kind of, if you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, and there's those little guys with their vacuum and they're sucking the marbles out, the stuff that she doesn't need, that's what our brain is doing while we're sleeping. It's pruning and creating connections. And when a person goes through a trauma or they've had chronic stress in their life, that process can get messed up a little bit. So what we do is we go back and we reprocess memories and moments and get it to a place where the mind can get to a place of healing and move towards health. And just see it differently. It doesn't change the memory. It still is what it is. It happened the way it happened, but you can see it from a different perspective.
Yeah. There's a book called The Gap and the Gain where it talks about
Yes,
that.
I talk about the gap.
Are you living in the gap or are you living the gain?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So counseling, blending in functional medicine together, blending in the blood work that I've been teaching her and that she's rocking with. So if you are like, I would love to work with somebody with that combination and that background, go to pathtowardhealing.com. That's where you can find everything about Jessica. So let's dive into B vitamins here.
Okay. So B vitamins are required to produce serotonin and dopamine. And we hear a lot about serotonin and dopamine. We need those for our brains to be functioning right. And these are the things that we're targeting with like antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. Serotonin is, there's a whole gamut of things that it impacts, but it's our sleep, our digestion, wound healing, bone health. Dopamine, same kind of thing, our mood, our motivation, our attention, learning, emotional responses. So they're really important. We need them, but we need B vitamins in order to produce them. And our sugar intake impacts our ability to produce enough B vitamins because sugar decreases, it uses up our B vitamins. I am not going to get the numbers right, but something like the average American uses up 3 times the amount of intakes 3 times the amount of recommended sugar. Processed sugar is harder on our system.
Which if it's coming from recommended from the RDA values, it's a pathetic recommendation. It's probably more like 30 times more than we should be eating, because yes. RDA values are created based off of, hey, don't eat this and you won't die. Mm-hmm. But I'll go through for an example. I have a bachelor's degree in nutrition and we were all about RDA values. RDA values of vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, minerals, zinc, calcium, all the stuff. And then I threw all that out the window when I learned functional medicine, because there's a difference between values that are going to help you survive and values that are going to help your body thrive. Mm-hmm. And that's a different story. So you want to survive with a vitamin D at 10, go for it. You want to survive with a vitamin D levels at 33, go for it. 33 is within the normal range. I guarantee you're going to feel like crap if you're at 33 versus I feel incredible at levels of 80 or higher. And that's where we're getting into this whole, let's talk about using B vitamins and serotonin levels and dopamine levels to excel.
Yes.
Not to just barely get through our day.
And it's not really realistic to say, because we all know, processed sugar is worse. In our society, it's not realistic to say cut out all processed sugar. But being aware of what you're taking in and the impact it's going to have is important. So, reducing it as much as you can and the impact that can have. And I know I don't need to speak to your audience about vitamin D and what that does, because you talk about vitamin D all the time. But there's evidence of, deficiencies in vitamin D and increases in depression. We see this in the further north you get.
Well, especially when you're up in the north.
Yes.
Yeah, you're up in the north where...
we don't get sun.
I'm even in Utah. We don't... Yeah. And I lived in Portland where it was like I just want to go home to Utah for a week so I can see the sun because I haven't seen it in 10 months.
Yes.
And it's August.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably.
But there's also deficiencies there's deficiencies in your Florida and your Texas and your Caribbean too, because we just don't make it like we used to.
Right.
So we got the vitamin D part. We're covered. Let's talk about these B vitamins though, because you've brought some important things in regards to anxiety, depression, in regards to serotonin, dopamine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, so we need these B vitamins, right? Well, we know that there is a connection between the gut and the brain. I mean, this is pretty well established. I know you've talked about this on your podcast too. So if we're not absorbing them enough or correctly because our gut is messed up, then we're not able to produce those neurotransmitters. So a lot of this stuff really is regulated in our gut too. I mean, there's studies in animals. So they took germ-free animals and then animals exposed to bacterial infections. And they found a role in the gut regulating anxiety, mood, and cognition and pain. So our gut's communicating with...
From infections.
Yes, with infections. So they had infections. And
I'm just highlighting that. I'm just highlighting from infections.
Right.
They cause anxiety and depression.
Yes.
Animals. Okay, keep going.
So then I'm going to tie in trauma with all this, right? So our gut communicates with our central nervous system. Well, trauma impacts the central nervous system. Chronic stress impacts the central nervous system. So we know that trauma actually changes the way that our brain functions. And there is a connection between trauma and inflammation. Well, you talk a lot on your podcast about inflammation too, infections, inflammation. All of these things are impacting our ability to heal emotionally, physically. All of it's connected. So if we have our gut's not working right, we're not absorbing our B vitamins, now we're not creating the neurotransmitters that we need to, feel good emotionally, well, then we start taking medication, or even the things that I do with people. We work on sleep and getting out and being around people. Like those are great things. But if we're not healing that gut, we're only going to get so far. I can adjust a person's
This is why
schedule.
counseling and functional medicine go so well hand in hand, because she's not only has that counseling modality, but now she can help heal the body from the inside out.
Yes. I've had people who are going through EMDR, they're working through their trauma and they're getting better. We're seeing progress. And then they add in something like vitamin D, or we start, working on improving nutrition so that they're getting more B vitamins. And it is just a game changer.
Yeah. So let's talk about these B vitamins as far as labs are concerned, because I know you're reading labs. If you're concerned about anxiety and depression, heck, we should all just make sure that we are utilizing these B vitamins very well. Mm-hmm. There's a section in the blood work called the CBC. That section where it says red blood cell count, hemoglobin, hematocrit, hemoglobin, HCT, HGB, these letters, there's 6 markers there. If they are floating on the high range of I'm not going to get into each one of them because that would be lengthy. But if they're floating on the high range of what your normal lab range says, your body's having a hard time utilizing those B vitamins. Maybe not B vitamin deficiency, like going to your doctor and getting injections of B vitamins might not be what it needs. Instead, a supplement that you can buy from me and from Jessica called MORS, MORS, is going to help your body use those B vitamins better. So now you compare that with the counseling. You compare that with the other modalities that you're using, helping your body heal from the inside out.
Yes. Healing the whole person.
Healing the whole person, just like she says. So we have how B vitamins impacting our serotonin and dopamine levels, which are our feel-good hormones. I guess they're not hormones technically, they're neurotransmitters. And then we have things like trauma impacting our body's ability to use those B vitamins. So a simple fix, again, is MORS, MORS. And then walk me through how you take this knowledge and you help someone overcome their, let's say, anxiety and depression.
So right now I'm kind of in
what would your journey be with them?
Yeah. I guess it would kind of depend on what they initially come for. So I'm in the beginning of stages of this, right? This is a newer world. So people are pretty familiar with what is involved in therapy. A lot of the people have tried therapy before. So EMDR might be a new modality that we go through. But I have always talked to my clients about the importance of taking care of their body. So it's just a normal thing we go through. Your sleep, your nutrition, getting fresh air, sunlight, all of those are really important, no matter what is going on for you, just as a human being. But then I started talking to them about more specifically with their nutrition, getting those foods that have the B vitamins. Are they taking a multivitamin? Talking about taking a vitamin D supplement, adding in some of these things that are going to help their body heal along with the mind. Because if the body is under stress, your mind isn't going to allow you to heal because it's focusing on other things. So we have to target the biggest culprit, I guess. What's the block? What's getting in the way? So part of it is figuring out which is it. Is this an emotional block? So we need to remove the emotional block first so your body can heal? Or do we target your body first and calm things down there so that you can heal emotionally?
Yeah. And now you're adding in the labs into that. So you can actually bring Jessica your blood work and she can help you interpret it. Because like we said earlier, infections cause anxiety and depression, as well as many other things. And she can help you determine if your body's fighting one of these infections. So you can get, like I said, keep saying, the best of both worlds. You got the counseling, you got the functional medicine, you got the blood work. You got it all right there in Jessica. And she's virtual, so she can work with you anywhere.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, we're breaking her free of the North Dakota, right?
It is North Dakota. Yes, very northwest North Dakota.
North Dakota. Where is it versus like North Dakota State?
Opposite corner
University
of the state. So that North Dakota State would be Fargo, in the southwest corner or southeast corner, and I'm in the northwest corner.
Well, I have a little funny story about North Dakota State. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, I do.
I played volleyball at SCU, and one of our stops was North Dakota State. And I remember, this is the only time I've been to North Dakota, but we flew in. I couldn't tell you where we flew into. Drove like 3 hours because that was our normal. We'd fly somewhere, then we have to drive for a couple hours to get to the school. And I was the girl that served. You're familiar with volleyball, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to play. Not college, but
I just go in to serve. My thing was serving at this point in time, because story later, but I was too much of an intimidating factor from my head coach, which wasn't just her, it was multiple head coaches. But I'm standing there back at the service line at North Dakota State, and there's this chick in their audience standing literally, 6-7 feet from me. She should not have been there. She's literally standing on the edge of the court with the program in her hands. So when you go back to serve, she would yell your name. She knew your name from the program. So here I am standing the back to serve, and she's yelling all sorts of things with my name in them. And you have to block her out. And I remember that instead of it being this, I'm going to have a hard time serving, I was using it as fuel. I probably served 8 times in a row, and it was at least half of them were aces. I remember taking their libero out of the rotation, but it was feeding me more than it was doing damage to me. That's my memory of North Dakota.
Well, that backfired on her.
It's this chick. Well, yeah, it's this chick on the game in the middle of our match. I couldn't even tell you who won the match, whether it was us or them. Yeah. That's the only thing I remember is this chick. But anyways, North Dakota, if you're around the area, great. If not, that's okay. Jessica's can help you with anything, break free from, really, not just anxiety and depression, but you can pair the counseling and the functional medicine and the blood work all together. And bam, pathtowardhealing.com is where you get started.
Yes. And when you're...
Okay, Jessica, I have one more question for you.
Yes.
If you were to go back to when you first graduated, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently?
Well, first of all, I would have taken your 90-day course sooner.
Oh, did I exist then?
It wasn't available then.
I don't know if I existed then.
I don't think you did.
But if you haven't, you should do it now.
Yes.
So the 90-day functional blood work specialist program, if you go to drkylieburton.com, if you're a practitioner listening for this is only for practitioners, go there, drkylieburton.com. You can figure out when the next 90-day program is that starts. Jessica's in this. So that would be one step. And basically learning the blood work, learning how to do the virtual thing, big money mindset, big mindset in general. So that's one step. What else would you do differently?
I definitely would have, because they don't teach you specific modalities in a graduate program. You get kind of general information, and I definitely would have gotten trained in EMDR sooner, because it's really been the most beneficial for my clients that have been struggling for many, many years, and the ones that haven't, ones that have had, maybe the last year has been tough, but it's just been, I've seen such better results. Also, although I've been doing, focusing on taking care of your body for several years, I didn't start out that way. So if I would have known how important taking care of your body is.
Did they cover that in school?
Briefly. It wasn't an emphasis. So that may have changed since I graduated.
You get more pharmaceutical training?
What's that?
Do you get more training with pharmaceuticals?
No, we get none. All of what I've learned about pharmaceuticals has been through collaboration with providers, physicians.
You get no training about pharmaceuticals as a counselor?
Not in the program I was in. Okay, I shouldn't say that.
We only had one class in it too,
here is the list.
Side effects of Xanax and SSRIs.
Yeah, not necessarily like how they're functioning in the body, what they're doing, what can mess with them.
That's okay. That's for pharmacists anyways. My cousin's a pharmacist. We had one class in pharmacy. And I remember after that, I'm like, oh, I have a lot more respect for you now, because it's intense to know all the chemistry, the biochemistry, the physiology, like all that stuff that they have to know. Blows my mind. So, okay, B vitamins impact your neurotransmitters. Things like trauma can impact your neurotransmitters, your serotonin, your dopamine, your B vitamins. Make sure your body's utilizing those B vitamins very efficiently. You can easily start with a supplement called MORS, MORS. Get that from either mine or Jessica's website. But be sure to check out Jessica. I keep reiterating it over and over again. She has superpowers that blend counseling, EMDR, functional medicine, and the labs, which is one powerful combination. So work with her at pathtowardhealing.com. Jessica, do you have a favorite patient story you would like to walk us through on how you help someone go from point A to point X?
Well, I'll just go with, I had my first one and it was pretty incredible. So she was on month 2 and she was supposed to be adding in another supplement. And she said to me, I don't even think I want to add it because I don't know what I'm going to do if I have any more energy. So this was somebody who was wanting to sleep all the time. She's like, I don't know what would happen. I don't think my family will be able to handle me. So that was pretty cool.
So the month 2, you're talking like what did you do to get to month 2?
It was really mostly support. So we were working on our thyroid. So we supported whole body, vitamin D, the mores, all of that. And then we started working on supporting our thyroid. So the GA for adrenal support. And by the time we got to month 3,
GB,
she was feeling awesome.
Those are the best.
Yes.
And you got to take that testimonial and get her to like, hey, tell your friends, send them over.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. You guys can have more energy too. If you're listening, don't need to take the naps to survive or send someone else to go get your kids from school. You can go get them. And that's a wrap.
All right.
Thanks, Jessica, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast with Dr. Kylie. I am here with a special guest, Julie Alsaker.
All soccer, kind of like all football.
All soccer.
All
okay.
Soccer.
All soccer, like the soccer ball.
Yeah.
Cool. I should have asked you that beforehand. But Julie is an interpreter, and a sign language interpreter. She's been hanging out in hospitals and doctors' offices and all things in the facilities like that. She finally got tired of having to tell patients, well, let's just let her tell you this story. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on your show. A lot of my story starts from the fact that I have used alternative medicine in my own life for 25 years. So working in mainstream medicine for the last 20 years has been a challenge. I have been in thousands of doctor's appointments, surgeries, PT appointments, everything you can imagine within the medical facilities. I've been there. And I just really quickly want to put this caveat out there. Nothing I say will have anything to do with any patient I've ever worked with, because confidentiality isn't only a requirement for certification, it is something ethically and morally that I value. So anything I'm saying isn't about any patients, but it's about the experience of, I know that alternative medicine works because it worked for me. And yet I go into appointments and I don't have a voice. I shouldn't. I'm an interpreter. I'm facilitating communication. But within that, a doctor might say, oh, you don't need that vitamin. They just are trying to make money. There's no real evidence that works. Or your diet's totally fine. You don't need to stop drinking pop. You can eat fast food, just exercise a little bit. And I interpret everything faithfully to the message because that's my job. And after I leave that appointment, I cannot say anything, right? That would be beyond the scope of why I was there in that appointment. But it just, it feels gross inside to say things that I know aren't true. And I've been doing natural alternative medicine training for 20 years. I have a long list of certifications, but I've never used any of them because my career is interpreting. And I finally there was one fairly recent appointment where I interpreted something that I knew for a fact that another one of those, well, you don't need that vitamin, that doesn't actually do anything, about something that I had just read a fantastic research article on, that it was incredibly beneficial in so many ways. And I just went, I've got to use my voice. And so
I've had enough.
I have now transitioned into starting my own practice. So I'm still interpreting, still, not having a voice there, but now in my own practice, I have a voice.
Well, let's say 90 days, because I know you just joined the 90-day program and we just had our first live group calls. In 90 days, you ain't working as an interpreter anymore. I mean, you can interpret and you can work with people in sign language, only it's going to be your voice that you interpret.
Yes, I love it.
So, I mean, as a sign language interpreter, how do you get started? Is it just like a good job? How did you get started with that medical field interpretation?
It was one of those things where it was never on my radar. But I I have probably an overly confident sense of skill sometimes. So when I was 8, I learned how to fingerspell my name. So let's jump ahead to college when the conductor for my choir said, I want somebody to sign this song. Does anybody know sign language? And I'm like, I can do it. I know how to fingerspell my name. And so I got a signing book and I learned the signs for all the words. And in retrospect, it was awful. I mean, it was not ASL. It was signed English, which is not ASL at all. It was, in retrospect, very embarrassing. But I thought I was doing it well at the time. So we traveled to New York. I'm from Minnesota. We traveled to New York and back, doing our concerts all the way. And I signed the song. And when I got back, my dad said, oh, that was just beautiful, amazing, because hearing people say that, because we don't actually know the difference if we don't know the language. And he said, why don't you become one of these people? And I go, oh, an interpreter? And he's like, yeah, why don't you do that? That was great. And the following week, I signed up for my first ASL class.
You are an action taker, and I love it. So Julie is starting off her own podcast, but we're in June right now. By the time you guys get to this, Julie, what's your podcast going to be called?
It's Easy Plus One. Easy Plus One podcast. And the concept with that is actually from an curriculum writer teacher named Andrew Pudwa, who does the Institute for Excellence in Writing curriculum. And his concept is teach, whether it's a child or an adult, teach them an easy thing to do in writing, and then add one more thing. That might be challenging. It doesn't have to be easy. Just add one more thing. And when that one thing becomes easy, now you add one more. And so you keep compiling a list of, and I'm applying this to healthy living, you keep compiling a list of healthy things you can do, but you're not going, I'm going to change my life overnight. I'm going to stop
tomorrow
all the bad things. I'm going to do all the good things. It's not going to happen. So do Easy Plus One.
I like it. That's brilliant. Did you come up with that?
Yeah, that was Andrew Pudwa. I came up with it for the healthy living application. I'm sure somebody else has done it because, all good things have been done before, but new to me.
Okay, guys, go follow Julie on Better Than Normal Health at Instagram, and then follow her podcast, Easy Plus One. Okay, Julie, what has been your biggest frustrating moment working as an ASL interpreter in the medical world?
I think my most frustrating thing is when patients are told that there's nothing they can do, that we don't know what causes this. There's no cure for it. You can't get better. All we can do is medicate. And I personally have been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, and told you need to be on medication for the rest of your life. And I just said, no, I won't do it. And I did take medication for a time until I figured out some things. And then I made lifestyle changes. And I continue to make lifestyle changes, and I am not on medication, and I am not symptomatic. And I'm even more excited because I understand it even more fully what was going on since watching your video on how your thyroid functions and how the liver is involved with conversion and things of that sort. So I feel like I'm already on top of it as far as not being symptomatic, and my blood numbers looking good. But now I even understand more what to address. And so when I hear
liver, adrenals, pituitary, those are the things.
Yes. So it drives me nuts when people are not given any hope.
Yeah, and let's pick on this topic. When so many of us listening, and as practitioners as well, have been told, you know what, you have MS. Mm-hmm. You need to go get on this trial shot to do it 1 month for the rest of your life to manage your MS. Otherwise, you're going to have flares, blah, 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 blah. I remember, on a personal note, I was sitting in a OBGYN's office. So I have a 5-year-old, and then I had a pregnancy right after him. And now I have Hallie, who just turned 2. But in the middle of those 2 kids, I had a pregnancy that ended at 20 weeks. And so when I got pregnant with Hallie, my midwife sent me off to this OBGYN to make sure all was well, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting in her office for over an hour, listening to her play this fear factor on me. Now, I don't care if you are pitching, whatever you're pitching me, do not pitch me with fear.
Yes.
I will not make a decision based upon fear. And I think many people in this world the last 2 years should implement into their lives. But anyways, she sat there and she told me over and over and over again about how the statistics were with this pregnancy I was at 12 weeks in. It was 70% likely to happen again, meaning I was going to 70% chance of losing this pregnancy at 20 weeks again. And I remember sitting back, I bawled, cried all the way back to my house. Luckily, my husband had decided to come with me that day in the middle of his work day because I was just going to go, what can she do to me kind of thing. And I remember going back to my midwife saying, one, don't ever send me there again. And be careful about who you send to her again, because she was playing the fear factor. Needed some patience, wanting me to get in as her patients. And then two, I had to remember what I know. And what I know is a lot different than what she knew.
Yep. Because
we were trained differently. Now, can I deliver a baby? No. That's her job. But can I navigate a pregnancy in a healthy way? Yes. And we are so determined by this fear factor that, if you don't, I had a family member say this to me over the weekend. Well, he has type 2 diabetes and it's a degenerative disease, so he's just bound to be in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
What? Really? That's what we believe is we're given this name and this diagnosis and then we just have to suffer with it until one day it's going to make us dead?
Well, and we're almost brought up to fear, right? We're taught from such an early age that, the C word. We don't say the word. It's almost like Harry Potter. We don't say Voldemort because, it's so bad. We don't say the C word. We don't say cancer because it's meant to cause extreme fear, because we're grown. There's nothing you can do, or whatever you're going to do, you're going to suffer greatly while you do it. And so if people could understand how our mindset affects everything that else that goes on, including our pregnancies, everything, I wish not only would the medical industry give people hope, but they would stop motivating out of fear. Because people don't make good decisions when they're scared. Think of when you get a diagnosis, right? If you've ever had a diagnosis, you're sitting in there, you go home, you can't remember anything the doctor said, right? You try to tell your loved one, I had a cancer scare a few years ago. And I still remember driving home going, okay, again, what do I know? I already have a plan in place if I ever were to get cancer, because it doesn't matter how healthy you live, you still breathe the air, you still walk on, the floors, you still wear the clothes that have the chemicals in them, because unless you buy all organic
still drink
clothes,
the water.
you still drink the water, even with our Berkey, it is what it is. So it's still a possibility for all of us. And I remember I was told it might be this, and I was driving home and I'm picturing my husband raising our daughters alone and I'm crying. And then I went, wait a minute. Number one, I don't know. Number two, I already have a plan in place, and it's not going to be the traditional route, but you're so ingrained that, well, if you do something natural, you're probably going to die. Maybe not. And I was fortunate that I didn't have the C word, but I also started calling it what it was. I had pre-cancer, and we cut it out and it's gone. And if it had been worse, I'm going to treat cancer in the natural way that I have planned out, but you have to know ahead of time because they're so good at scaring you in those appointments. I don't want to live making decisions based on fear because your brain doesn't work.
So if you don't make decisions based on fear, how do you make decisions?
Well, number one, I try to think of a lot of things.
First off, guys, let me caveat this too. Julia is like me. She makes decisions and she takes action fast. So Julia, how do you do it?
It's extreme in good and bad situations. I'm not saying I'm always good an extreme good way. Sometimes I'm extreme in the bad way, but I try to make as many decisions ahead of time as possible so that when I'm in that moment and my brain can't function, because, you know, parasympathetic, your fight or flight, you're just not going to be able to think. So I make decisions ahead of time for some of the big things. I have my team, right? Your people that you trust. You know, my husband is very great at, he's a first responder. And so he sees catastrophic stuff all the time, and he's able to take emotion out of it and let's deal with what we have at hand. And then I've got my mom, who my husband calls me the third generation crazy natural lady in a loving way. He means that in a good way. My mom is second generation crazy natural lady. So I know I can go to my mom with things too and say, okay, mom, even getting sick, because we still get sick even though we're healthy people. Sometimes I'll be sick and I'll be in bed and it'll be the second day, and my mom goes, well, what are you doing for yourself? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm laying here. And she goes, have you taken did you up your vitamin D? Have you done a steam with these essential oils? And I'm like, oh, I would tell someone else to do all those things, but I haven't done them for myself. So that's when you surround yourself with the people that know what you would want to do if you were in your right mind, and they can influence you to help you make those decisions. So that's how I approach those things.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I want to bring it back to your history, and now you're excited because you're transitioning out of that just being the messenger to now you get to speak your message. If you were to sit and go back to every single one of those patients, what would you tell them?
Well, my first and foremost training is that from a holistic nutrition perspective. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and I have been for 15 years. And I wish people could understand the impact that their food makes. Specifically, and my husband hates this, but that sugar is poison. I started my first Sugar is Poison Pinterest board in 2000. I stand by it.
In 2000? Holy smokes.
There is so much. I feel like there's more literature out on the devastation of refined sugar. Like, we have sweets in my house, but it's raw honey that I buy from my friend down the road. It's maple syrup that my brother makes from the trees around his house. It's those types of things. The incredible.
You mean it's not this type of thing that I've been snacking on all day long?
Don't eat that. Which, can I tell you?
Okay, I've only had two today.
That is why I love the blood labs, though, because I can try to get people to eat healthy, and the fact is, it's some of the most addictive substances in the world are what we put into our mainstream food supply, and so to try to get people to quit eating that is very hard. But when you show a person their blood labs and you say, these numbers are off and this is what it means, people can do that, right? They can go, oh, I can understand that, versus, but if this was unhealthy, they wouldn't have it in the store. If it was really that bad, they would pull it, right? They would pull it.
It wouldn't be FDA approved. Because it's FDA approved, it's good.
Right.
Because the CDC tells me to go do it, it's good.
Yeah.
But the same exact stuff is not legal in Europe.
Yes. And I tell everybody, Europe is usually 20 to 40 years ahead of us. And I think part of that, my theory, is that they have a lot of socialized medicine. So their government has to pay for their illnesses, right? And if you're paying for someone's illnesses, you don't want to have them being very sick. I'm not saying, put on your tinfoil hat. I'm not saying our government wants us to be sick. I'm not saying they don't.
Oh, come on, Julie. We all know the truth.
I know. Let's see all the Venn diagrams with the people that work in agriculture and pharmaceutical and government. Anyway.
Let's just do the pharmaceutical and government and see what's happening underneath the table.
Yeah. So
let's call it out for what it is.
I always like to warn people to put on their tinfoil hat, because I have mine. So if I could get people to understand the effect of the food, so many lives are completely transformed when people just implement a low inflammation diet. Just that alone.
Which is what?
Which is avoiding the refined sugars, avoiding gluten, even if it's temporary. We talk about the 21-day blood markers. Inflammation can be reduced if just 21 days. Refined sugar, gluten, soy, and is it alcohol is the last one? Why is my brain leaving me right now?
Dairy.
Thank you. That's it. I was just throwing alcohol for fun there too.
Dairy is a good one too. Well,
Dairy's the
alcohol is a
other
good one too.
Yeah. So those 4 things, and then add, abstaining from alcohol for those 21 days if you want to. But if people do that for 21 days, they're going to see an immense change in how they feel. And then you add in some supplements that help support your body through these changes. People don't understand how bad they actually feel. That's why I say better than normal health, because I literally had someone say to me the other day, I'm interested in what you do, and I think I'm going to have you read my blood labs, but I'm not actually sick. I think I'm pretty healthy. And I'm thinking, well, if you're healthy, then why do you want me to look at your blood labs? And I think that they suspect that they could feel better. And then when people start feeling better, then they recognize how poorly they've actually been living for so long, that what they accepted as normal for me or normal for my age. I hate that. My parents are in their mid-60s. They are on 0 prescription medications. Normal for your age does not mean being on, what are we up to in 2022 now? I think the average adult at 60 years old is on 14 prescription medications. That's not normal, and it doesn't have to be.
And then people say, wait, I don't want to pay for your services. Well, you already are.
You are.
You're paying for the medical bills, and you're paying for the medications, and you're paying the copays, and yet you say you don't have money for this. You're already dumping money into it. Look where it's got you.
Yeah. And it's that because they could feel so much better. And so
better than normal.
When you've experienced going not feeling great to feeling amazing, you just want everybody to join you. Come on, you guys, this is great.
And you're one of them, right?
Yes, I am.
You're one of those who went from not feeling great to Hashimoto to now feeling amazing. What was some key changes that you made?
Well,
on your Hashimoto journey?
So my stuff started actually, I think one of my root causes was I was very sick when I was young. I saw lots of doctors, almost died at 11 from pneumonia. I had pneumonia once or twice a year.
I had pneumonia at 12.
Wow, there we go. And the doctors,
cool.
their label was, your daughter is just sickly. That was their official diagnosis, was that I was sickly and I was always going to be sickly. And so when I was 15, there was a woman at my church that did massage therapy, and she also did supplements and muscle testing. And she muscle tested me, said, you're dealing with all these things. And I'd been on so many antibiotics. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of antibiotics I took when I was young. And those herbs and supplements changed my life completely. 180. I went from missing school 2, sometimes 3 times every single week to still being sick once in a while, right? But it was once in a while, like a normal person. And so that was my big change. And then, of course, in college, and I got married while I was still in college, then I started eating like crap because everybody did, and I just want to fit in. And that's where the hypothyroidism started flaring and the Hashimoto started flaring. And then it was, seeing a doctor that she likes to call hypothyroidism the silent killer. You need to take your medication. This will kill you in the long run. You're not going to know it. It's not going to be big, but this is something that'll kill you. And then I found a new doctor. Someone that lets me be in control of my own health. And so when I say, I don't want this prescription, what else can we do? And fortunately, this is regular MD, but that says, okay, let's try cutting out gluten and let's try doing these things to see if we can reduce your inflammation, which will affect, all the whole chain down the river of stuff. And then now I'm taking some systemic formulas, supplements to support the system as well. And my numbers are great.
And you feel great. And you look like, I would have never guessed. Usually you can pinpoint someone with thyroid issues, like their hair's falling out, or they just have that look about them, right?
Yep.
Where you don't. you have that look of, I'm a healthy, vibrant 35-year-old. Am I guessing right? Close?
Well, it's nice because the sun is setting and the window's right in front of me, so it's shining in and giving me this glow. Yay for sunset.
Well, the bottom line is now you get to speak your message,
I get to speak
your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've talked about on this last little bit here, that it is a message of hope.
Yeah.
And it is a message of, just because you had a diagnosis or just because you are feeling like crap doesn't mean it needs to end.
Yes.
And be like that forever.
Yeah.
So if you could give the listeners one tip that they could do right now to start feeling better, what would it be?
Well, that's a good question. I would... there's such a long list in my brain. I'm trying to narrow it down to one. I would connect with somebody that gives you hope. Find whether that's a naturopath or a friend or somebody that, whatever it is, find that person that from a health standpoint, when you are with that person on their journey, it gives you hope. And then do what they do.
I'm writing that down. Connect with someone who gives you hope. And that might mean to cut the connection of somebody who doesn't.
Correct.
And that might mean clearing out some social media feeds.
Yes.
Like, I'll give you an example. There are 2 functional medicine doctors who are huge. I stopped following them. Oh, my feed was so much better. So do what you need to do. Connect with someone who gives you hope. Cut the ties of someone who doesn't. And then one last question, Julie. Speaking about the practitioners, or to the practitioners listening, if you were to go start everything over again, what would you do? You're kind of already there.
Clarify.
Because you're at that new place of...
Clarify.
So like, if you were to lose your practice, your clientele, everything, and go back and start a practice over again,
okay,
what would you do?
Yes. I would start analyzing blood work earlier. It is the thing that clients can understand, and they have to have something they can understand or they won't do it. And it is amazing to me how I have preached healthy eating for 15 years till I am out of breath, out of energy, out of time. And they've heard it all before. But what they haven't heard before is, let me see your labs. I will change your life.
Who wants to come hang out with me in Florida in February of 2023? If you're a practitioner, you have an opportunity to come join me inside the brand new live and in-person event, Orlando, Florida at the Wyndham Grand Bonnet Creek Resort. February 20th, 21st, and 22nd of 2023. Mark your calendars because registration begins in November with details out in November, and there is early bird sign up if you get in and join us before the end of the year. So stay tuned. This is for you practitioners. I'm going to bring you the best marketing, mindset, and business experts in the world, because this is something we all need, yet we don't receive. So mark your calendars, February 20, 21st, and 22nd. Not only am I going to bring you the best experts, but I'm going to celebrate your success with you. We're going to celebrate on that Monday night, that Tuesday night, and that Wednesday night. So you can fly in on Monday, but don't fly out until Thursday. Hang out with us and celebrate your successes, because the only way to measure success is to measure it backwards. This podcast is sponsored by my favorite supplement companies. If you're not using them in your practice, you should. If you're not using them and don't have them in your cupboard, you should. And by the way, don't get these on Amazon. These are counterfeit on Amazon. My favorite supplement companies are Systemic Formulas and My Biome. If you are a practitioner, come join me inside their private Facebook group for practitioners called Systemic Formulas Clinical Nutrition. Everybody else, join them on Instagram at Systemic Formulas.